Financial Action Task Force, as you said, sometimes called FATF, which is a global money laundering and financial crimes watchdog, has come up with a plan to drive the, quote, timely implementation, end quote, of its global standards for crypto, a new report out this morning shows. That report showed that the group, noting that many countries have failed to implement what they think should be international norms for crypto. This goal of one set of rules for kind of the whole world is something that we hear about a lot from people who sit atop kind of the current monetary order, and not without good reason. With that said, Jen, why don't you start us off today?
Yeah, I want to zero in on this call for strong crypto regulation. I think that word strong is so important in this story. And I think, what we've spoken about so much is it's not necessarily strong regulation. It's regulation that understands the industry. It's regulation that is willing to be flexible as this very new industry evolves. A piece in the article that I thought, I shouldn't think it's funny, but I thought it was kind of funny, is that only 11 out of the 98 jurisdictions that are part of FATF that should be implementing the travel rule have not. And if we look at that one piece of data and we look at what they're doing now to try and get all of these jurisdictions to implement strong crypto regulations, regardless of, culture or other things that go into what's happening in these jurisdictions, is quite a feat, I must say. But Zach, I'll toss it off to you for your initial thoughts, and then we can dive deeper.
Yeah, I mean, uniting this patchwork of regulatory regimes is indeed the stated goal, and is something that I think is a bit Herculean and probably unrealistic to occur with this sort of global borderless technology. It's going to be hard to get everyone on the same page because there are advantages to not being on the same page. There's all sorts of regulatory arbitrage that goes on in the space in terms of where things are domiciled, which jurisdiction you choose to play in, which rules you choose to play by. And I think the task here for FATF to establish sort of a shared understanding of how it should work is difficult, right? They've been at this for a long time, trying to apply sort of the travel rule and other existing scriptures onto how global cryptocurrency transactions should work. And it's a long and laborious process. And I think you're right, Jen, like hopefully there is a bit of creative thinking in applying new standards to these new technologies where they don't necessarily apply to existing standards. In some cases, existing standards are probably going to be all right. There's plenty of money transmitter laws that map fairly nicely onto crypto stuff. There are other things that don't really apply to the world of DeFi in a meaningful way that, serves the stated interests of what bodies like the FATF are trying to accomplish. So, again, this is one of those sort of like big picture, square peg, round hole stories where the impulse from the regulatory bodies around the world is to standardize, unify, get some set of rules that may ultimately, never come to pass. And I think that's sort of the interesting thing, is to track these conversations over time to see what actually materializes into actual regulation. But Adam, I'm sure you have thoughts on this. I'm going to toss it your way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think that they have a choice but to do this, but I think that you're right. The word you used is Herculean. I think that's the correct word to use in this circumstance. It's a really, really, really big lift because the incentives in the game theory really don't line up. But that's also the reason that's driving this push from organizations like the FATF, is that the game theory, if they don't win on this particular battle, it gets a lot worse for them as time goes on. And they basically, things quickly go out of control for them. And I mean, the big challenge that they face with these rules, again, even were everybody in agreement on them, is that there's really two different places that cryptocurrency exists in practice. One is on the blockchain, where really there's no such thing as borders. There's no cashing out to dollars. There's just stuff that's on a blockchain, moving around on a blockchain between people using blockchains. And then there's the on-ramps and off-ramps, where you have conversion from sort of the traditional financial world into crypto, and then back out of crypto into the traditional financial world. That's the place where we've seen most of the pressure applied here. And it just illustrates the challenge of trying to apply this as a standard. Because when you're looking at a lot of these transactions, like the information that you would have if you were a bank that was subject to all of these rules is very different than the information that you have as somebody who's just facilitating cryptocurrency transactions or has an application in which people do stuff on a blockchain, right? So that's the big challenge. It's just like there's technical issues, there's game theory issues, but at the same time, what else really could they do? I don't see an alternative. So it makes sense, but I also expect this to fail. Jen?
Yeah, I think that, it theoretically works when you see that everyone is not on the same page. You say everyone needs to get on the same page because us all not being on the same page isn't working. But I don't think we're going a step further and asking, why is everyone not on the same page? And are we all going to come to some kind of mutual decision in a fast enough time frame to actually address some of these problems? And so I think it's just like a cyclical issue. And for me, I think it makes sense when you get a bunch of people in the room who don't know where to start, maybe don't have a lot of information on what's going on, to say, great, the first thing we need to do is get on the same page. But unfortunately, I think it's going to cause more confusion. Zach, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, you talk about strong regulation. I think I think FTX is a really powerful example, right? You have FTX Japan, which is now processing user withdrawals, right? Largely because of some of the strong regulation that was in place in Japan in the wake of Mt. Gox and a subsequent major hack in crypto history. I think it was CoinDesk. Just check me on that. So we are seeing this unfold in real time, where there's this patchwork leads to different outcomes for crypto consumers based on their national geography. And I think Japan is a really strong case for, strong but appropriate regulation for crypto can be a good thing in terms of protecting consumers. Adam, got to give you the last word, then we'll change cheers.
Good luck. I wish them luck. I don't hope they succeed, but I wish them luck.
Great last words. Good luck.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.